Joining us now, former Republican National Committee Chair Michael Steele and Victoria DeFrancesco Soto as well, Dean of the Clinton School of Public Service at the University of Arkansas. Welcome to you both, guys. Thanks for joining us on this. Michael, let me start with you on this one. Former President Trump has endorsed Dr. Oz, but if in fact he gets beat by this outsider in the race, Kathy Barnett, what does that mean for Trump? And by the way, how do you see these new images of Barnett that's emerging now at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th? Playing into this general election, if in fact she pulls through tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big concerns that not just Trump, the Trump side of the party, but the Mitch McConnell side of the party is concerned about. Look, you're seeing, a narrative emerge going into the fall that, once had Republicans sort of not only taking the House, but with a real possibility of taking the Senate. And now these candidates are beginning to emerge in primaries, in many cases, winning those primaries that now call into question the opportunity to take those seats in a general election. That's the reality of a Barnett candidacy in a general election. It's the same it is for Dr. Oz. And don't think you go from bad to worse. It's all the same mix in a general election between Oz and Barnett. Her surge has a lot to do with the video that she did on her position on abortion. Abortion is going to be a real clear question in the upcoming election. So all of these factors are going to play into this race. And for Trump, this is a win-win for him either way. So if Oz loses to her, he will likely, find a way to sort of, cobble together some support for her. But at the end of the day, we're still talking about Trump. So, and keep in mind, whether he's endorsed these candidates or not, they still want to be in his space. They still want his endorsement. And for Trump, that's always a win.
They still want his endorsement. And Trump has said, and not sure if you said this, because we do have some kind of spotty connections here, but Trump has said, listen, I haven't endorsed Barnett because you can't win in a general election, right? The Democratic race, though, it seems is a bit clearer than the Republican primary, Victoria. So if, in fact, she pulls through, could she hold up against a Democratic candidate like, for instance, Fetterman?
I think that's going to be really difficult, both in terms of just her ideology, her being one of the more conservative candidates. In the primaries, we always see voters run to the extremes, and then they try to walk it back in the general election. But if you've already started out from a very extreme position, that's going to be harder to do. And on top of that, because of the leak from the Supreme Court, we know that abortion and choice is going to be a major issue in this election. And Kathy Barnett has been very clear about where she stands. So I think that could put off some of those more moderate voters, independent voters. We know that independent voters do support overwhelmingly a right to choose. And I think that's also going to mobilize some Democrats to turn out and vote against her. So I think that she's especially problematic when we're looking at November.
It's problematic. It's also incredibly complicated, Michael Steele, to watch. And I say this because you got Doug Mastriano, endorsed by the former president, running for governor, campaigning alongside Kathy Barnett against Mehmet Oz. How does that play into the calculus of this whole thing? It doesn't make sense.
Well, it does, actually. It makes a lot of sense. You have Mastriano sort of, and others kind of moving to the candidate that they think that they can get a little bit of, juice from, a little extra love and from their voters. Kathy has been surging. And so the idea is you want those candidates to look as favorably upon you as they do Kathy. So that's just the nature of the politics of it. It makes for strange bedfellows every time, even in primaries.
Michael, I want to move back to the events here in Buffalo while I have you. Representative Liz Cheney said House GOP leaders, quote, have enabled white supremacy and anti-Semitism, adding that this history has taught us what begins with words ends in far worse. And I'll tell you, this is echoed in this community, Michael. As I spoke with community members here yesterday, I asked them if they have trust in Washington, in lawmakers, to get this done. And they said what happened here on Saturday is not just a result of 400 years of racism. It is a result of the words that are being used in Washington. by members specifically, as they told me, of the Republican Party, of the GOP. What do you make of that?
Liz has nailed it, as she has from the very beginning of this. I agree with her words wholeheartedly. The silence since this shooting from Republican leaders, House and Senate, has been deafening. It has been disturbing. It has been unfortunate. And yet again, you know, you get these same folks come out and start talking about they want the black vote. All right, so let's talk about the white supremacy that you stoked to the point that you have someone stalking blacks in grocery stores. What do you say about that? And the thing about this is important, what Liz has done, and I spoke about a little bit earlier today on Morning Joe, is you can't not avoid connecting the dots here. You can't just whistle past them and say that there is no line between the rhetoric and the behavior, the silence that people give in the leadership. So Liz is right.
It's fascinating to me, as I've been covering the events here in Buffalo, and saying this to the both of you, in that as we've been covering the war overseas in Ukraine and seeing the loss of life there, this community very much feels it's at war in this country. And they feel as if they are being attacked, the black community specifically. And they feel like they don't have the support that they need from the people that could actually protect them if they cared enough to do so. And that's what they're telling me. And it's a sad state of affairs right now with the events here that have taken place in Buffalo. Michael Steele, thank you. Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, thank you as well. Coming up.